Good morning. I hereby call this agenda review meeting of the Nacogdoches ISD Board of Trustees to order. Let the record show that a quorum is present. Notice this meeting was legally posted in accordance with Texas Open Meeting Act. I would like to remind everyone that all items on the agenda today are for discussion only. No action will be taken at this meeting. Please join us in turning your cell phones to silent mode. At this time, we do not have any registered to speak. We're going directly board to our consent agenda, and we'll now discuss items from the consent agenda. Board will begin with the board meeting minutes. Any questions or comments on the board meeting minutes? We'll now move to our business office reports, and Mrs. Barbarick will turn it over to you.
Good morning, President Neal, board members. I'd like to start with the budget amendments. All right, so budget amendment A is in regards to some donations. We received various donations, so I'm budgeting the revenue and the associated expenses. Budget B and C are related. So budget B, we will be receiving insurance proceeds to cover expenses from the cyber attack we had. And so part of that will be legal fees. The majority will be IT fees to pay for the forensics company that we've hired. Budget C is in anticipation of purchasing an antivirus software, which we are later on in this meeting, Mr. Martin will be proposing to add to the agenda.
So we'll have time for discussion at that, when he brings it up. We'll be able to discuss.
Administration's going to make a proposal to the board for your consideration to approve the purchase of some antivirus software that will alleviate some of these situations in the future.
Thank you.
And part of the reason we're doing it in this manner is this is an emergency.
Yeah.
And so we're trying to move quickly on this.
Thank you, Ms. Barbara.
Okay. Item D, we've had some increases in our financial and software cost that were not budgeted, and so I'm transferring money to pay for those costs. It is our e-finance and e-school software.
Okay.
And item E, we've received insurance monies throughout the year, and they've been placed in the wrong account. They should be placed in revenue and then increase our expenses to pay for what the insurance covered. So that's what I'm doing there. And then item F, we have added on to our student software. This will allow parents to enroll their students online rather than coming in. We're filling out paper. It will save on paper costs and also just a convenience for our parents, for them to be able to do this online.
Will that include the packet at the beginning of the year?
Yes.
Yay!
Can I just say hallelujah?
Yay!
Yes.
Now that I have no children there.
Yes, it'll alleviate all of that, allow them to fill out the forms and everything online.
Will there be any other, like a station, like could they come here and fill it out, or where, would there, somebody that doesn't have internet at their home, is there a place they can go to fill out that same paperwork without?
They can come here, but most everybody at least has a smartphone, and you can even do it from a smartphone.
Okay.
So for the very few that absolutely don't have anything, then yes, we will have, and
Yes.
we are gonna ask the library, they can go to the library to do it.
Okay.
So you don't have to have special software, it's you sign in. Any questions on the budget amendments? Other questions?
Board, any other questions? Thank you, Ms. Barber. Thank you. Donations under 2,500?
We've received several donations, a majority of them from the different athletic booster clubs. They're all under 2,500. Do you have any questions on that list?
Board, are there any questions, comments? We just appreciate the booster club's support given our students and our community.
I wanted, Jamie Rodriguez is not just donating money, but she's putting stuff in the paper for all the different people selected monthly. And this is really, really strong in publicizing people that are succeeding in their work. And it's a very diverse group, including the teachers and aides. And that is a really big thing. So we want to thank not just Jamie, but everybody that does things to encourage our students and our whole district, because that's not just for one school, but it's a group thing. I really appreciate that.
Thank you, Dr. Groman. Any other comments, board?
Oh, we didn't talk about the swim team. We'll do that later, huh?
We'll move to our investment report.
On the investment report, we just continue to receive our interest earned on our accounts. Just a note, it's not reflected here because I don't give you cumulative, but I just wanted to let you know that we have received about trying to remember what that amount was. It's either just under or right at $1 million in interest for our bonds since we've gotten the money.
Board, any questions on investment reports?
My question, just on the interest on the bond, do we have a limited time that we can get interest on that, or is it just based on what our balance is after we're doing our projects?
It's based on our balance, but we can earn too much. The state does not want you holding on to that money and not spending it, but we are spending it, so we shouldn't have a problem with that.
Okay.
Thank you. Board, any other questions? Ms. Barber, will you continue miscellaneous business office reports?
The rest are just miscellaneous reports. I did break out 2 different reports that they were both on the same page. I broke them out now. Bond indebtedness and the cash reconciliation. Not that I'm reporting anything different, I'm just putting them on 2 different reports.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you have any questions on those various reports?
Board, are there any questions or comments on those reports? Thank you for providing that information to us. We'll move down to C, purchases over $25,000. And we're going to begin with our benchmark education, teaching and learning. Dr. Hill.
Good morning, President Neal and Board of Trustees. I bring forward a request to purchase some additional materials for our bilingual classrooms, and this will supplement what we purchased in earlier this year for our English strand regarding our guided reading materials. And I put a little blip in the action sheet regarding what guided reading is. It's just small group instruction where the teacher works with about 4 to 5 students on their particular reading level, and this particular kits do come with leveled readers for the classrooms.
Wonderful.
How many students did you say?
I didn't say students, it's for grades kindergarten through grade 5.
Do we have an idea how many students that impacts?
That will be,
I can get it
Okay.
for you in just a few
I'm
moments.
just curious to see how many students we're providing that service to.
Sure. If you'll give me just a few minutes, I've
Okay.
got some numbers and I can just add
Okay.
them up. And this will be expended from our federal funds.
Okay. Thank Any questions, we'll come back to Dr. Hill, unless she'll provide that information to us. Give her a few minutes.
You said this is coming from federal funds, so not something that we had to budget for or anything like that?
No, ma'am. I mean, we had to budget for it on our federal side, but not necessarily from a
Okay.
general fund.
What is Dr. Hill's doing then? Do you mind we go to D and let Mr. Morton talk to us about certificate on the post candidates for May 2nd?
Can I ask one more question?
Yeah, well, we can stay there until she,
Okay.
I'll give her a chance.
My other question is, we're using federal funds for this program, right? Now, if it comes to a point in time where we don't get the federal funds to cover this, do we look at using general funds for this?
In the case of that, yes, sir. The good thing about these is that they're not necessarily consumables. The only thing that we might have to replace from year to year would be if a particular reader that a student, it was sent home with the student and it didn't come back. Typically, it comes with about 6 titles, 6 copies per title. So if one of those just happened to not come back, we would just need to replace that one title. So it's not necessarily consumables.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Good question.
As she's telling that, Mr. Morton, will you go to item D and talk to us about certification of unopposed candidates?
Morning, President Neal, members of the board. Yes, item D, the at-large District 2, District 3 races for the May 2nd, 2020 elections are unopposed. The authority responsible for having the official ballot prepared shall certify in writing that the candidates are unopposed to the election of the available offices. The next steps will be to issue an order declaring the election canceled and the unopposed candidates elected. The administration is recommending that the board approve the certification of unopposed at-large District 2 and District 3 candidates for May 2nd, 2020 election of the Board of Trustees.
Thank you, Mr. Morton. Board members, any comments or questions? Dr. Hill, we're back to you, excuse me.
It's approximately 351 students.
Pardon?
Approximately 351 students.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hill. Board, we'll go down to the next one, E, letter commitment to participate in Region 5, ESC Food Service Cooperative, and Ms. Thacker, thank you for joining us this morning. And before you begin, we thank you for all you do for us, and certainly our students and the program. Thank you for your work.
Well, thank you very much. Good morning, President Neal, board members. I'm just wanting to renew something that in my interview, Mr. Neal, I told you we needed to do to save us some money back in 2009.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you remember that?
I remember.
And so in 2010 and 11, when I could get us into a co-op, I did, and saved us $50,000 just on milk, not including everything else. So I'm just asking that we continue with Region 5. It's going to cost us $5,200, but it would cost me a whole person to do half the stuff that they do. I'd probably need 2 to make it right. So that's a good chunk of change we save, just to spend $5,200.
I realize we're in Region 7. Region 5 is located
It's in Beaumont.
Beaumont. Okay.
When I first came, I didn't know that many co-ops, and so my first recommendation was to go to Region 17, where I knew the people, which was across Texas. It's in Lubbock. And the current superintendent said that would be great if it's going to save us that kind of money. It was worth the flight. So, but then I kind of looked around. Region 7 at the time did not have what we needed, so we went to Region 5 because they were able to. They have 50 schools that are in their co-op, and we're able to have a lot of local control. A lot of the co-ops do have committees that help do all that, but we're all the directors meet and we make decisions as a whole entire entity. So I get to go to that area for a couple of times a year.
Thank you.
And they also host food shows. They host one in Beaumont. They also host a food show in Lufkin to allow students to actually pick out what's the best products that they would want to eat in their cafeteria. So it allows us to have some real data as to what the kids want, because that's what we want. We want the kids to eat it. We don't want to feed the trash cans, unfortunately.
Board, any comments or questions
I-
for Ms. Thacker?
I just want to say, Ms. Thacker, that I still can't express enough the fact that our kids don't have to go hungry at school and to get a meal. We've had some discussions about that and with other board members and stuff in their schools about how the fact that a child has to come to the line and then get their food taken away because they don't have the money to pay for their food. I'm just thankful that our district is feeding all our kids and that they don't have to worry about having to have the money to be able to eat and be ready for school in the morning. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, and I do want to thank our community for being diligent about getting us the income surveys done to where we don't lose on the other side of the accountability side and all that, because if it wasn't for them doing that, it probably would be hard for us to continue with what we're doing.
Thank you. Board, any other comments or questions for Mrs. Thacker? Thank you, Ms. Thacker.
Thank you.
Board, next on the agenda is discussion and action agenda. Consider an audit engagement letter for fiscal year ending June 30, 2020. So, Ms. Bobbrick, we'll turn it over to you, please.
This is an annual item we bring, since we have to have an audit every year. We are requesting that we continue to use the same auditors, Belt, Harris, and Pahacek, I believe that's how you say it. Their fees are going up, but that is because our activity is going up. May look like an increase, although I didn't put last year's, but it is increasing, but that's in line with what we are doing as well, with our bond and just new grants that we get.
So how many years can we extend that? Is this the second,
This will be I believe, the fourth year.
fourth?
You can keep them, it is recommended that you change the senior partner, the head, at least every 5 years. You can keep the same firm, but it's recommended that you change every 5.
Do you recall if over the last 4 years, has there been an increase that you can remember every year for our audit, or has it been pretty steady and not increased?
This year was a little bit of an increase, and then next year, we're expecting more.
Thank you, Board. Any other questions? Okay. Ms. Bobbrick, thank you. We're going down, Board, to B, consideration of the 2021 instructional calendar. And Dr. Hill, will go back to you.
Thank you, sir. I just wanted to thank Paulette Tomlinson and Kirsten Morris for their help in constructing these two calendars. Option A is very similar to the current or existing calendar. Option B is where they began to think a little bit out of the box. And so just some of the changes that you'll notice, and just other information to note, spring break is aligned with SFAs. I know that's always an area of concern. April 2nd is Good Friday and will again be a bad weather day. This year's calendar, we have the Friday and the Monday off, but because the TEA has changed the state testing for next school year, we were not able to have that 4-day weekend, but you do have the Friday of Good Friday, hopefully as a bad weather day. We have our professional development is from the 10th through the 14th for the district, if that makes sense. So if you look on both calendars, there's approximately roughly about 3 weeks prior to the first day of school. And so we're going to designate 1 week as being district staff development. And so I've worked with the principals, and they told me kind of their thoughts on that. And they for sure wanted their staff on the first day that everybody was back on contract. And so we went ahead and delineated a particular week for district PD so that they knew not to plan anything, but then that way we're not interrupting them constantly prior to school. Let's see, on option B, last day of school is May 27th. Teachers begin on August the 5th. There is an October fall date, or fall break, if you'll notice, 2 days. There's 2 days of a break and then a PD day, and those are October 12th and 13th. And then when we come back in January, there's a PD day, the first day back, but then there's also a teacher work day for if they need to clean up their grades and get any of that, some housekeeping things in line. We had an overwhelming response this year, whether it was electronic and or paper and or face-to-face. There were approximately 463 votes for option B, about 195 for option A. So we were very pleased with the overwhelming turnout for the calendars.
What groups actually get to vote? I mean, are we just talking about instructional staff and administration, or everybody?
Everybody.
Ev-
Food, nutrition, transportation, and anybody. It's all staff.
Do we have any idea of the breakdown, like, particularly with teachers, instructional staff?
All I have is the online. We didn't necessarily have them put what role they are in the district, if that makes sense. And there were 343 that did online through SurveyMonkey. From food, student nutrition, we had 67. From transportation, we had 52. Miscellaneous, which I believe they came in and actually had a face-to-face meeting, which was 1, for a total of 463.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Pastor.
I'm just glad to see the October days. I recently learned that that's a long stretch for our teachers, so I was glad to see that.
Yes, sir. And that was primarily why it was put in. That is such a long stint, and there's kind of a lull that we experience in the fall, and that's one of them. Plus, we were hearing a lot of, some of our neighboring schools have a week off in October, and we were hearing, well, why can't we have a week off? And it kind of goes back to us being not being a district of innovation, and so we did our best to at least give a little bit of a break.
Awesome.
Thank you, sir.
Dr. Hill, we are still fairly close to the SFA calendar. Are we very close to what they
It's
do?
online with it.
Spring break.
It's online with it, right?
It's online with the SFA calendar?
Yes, I believe, for
Right,
sure,
okay.
their spring break,
Okay,
yes.
that's-
Yes, spring break was the most important that we were looking at.
Thank you.
I don't know that I don't know that I could give you SFA's calendars from like
no,
when they began and
right,
end,
no.
but, okay.
Spring break. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Board, any other comments or questions on the calendar? Thank you, Dr. Hill. And we thank our staff district-wide for taking time to respond. Item C, consideration of board operating procedures for public comment. Board, let me, just for a second, there are revisions to board policy BED, Article 2. And item 4C on page 114 of your board book, we've been using drafting procedures for public comment. We've been using procedures for a while. If approved, these procedures will be implemented in Article 2. Another option you may want to consider is that a board workshop that's coming up that you could review and go over the procedures, something that you may want to consider at that time. So we have a board workshop coming up soon, and so something you may want to consider.
I would like to consider that in our board meeting, so we can have some discussion.
Okay,
So we'll take that off the agenda
Yes.
and do the entire manual at a board workshop.
thank you. Thank you, board. The board will now conduct an executive closed session to discuss the items posted on our agenda pursuant to the following provisions of the Texas Open Meetings Act as allowed by Texas Government Code Sections 551.071, 551.072, 551.074, and 551.129. No voting will take place in the closed meeting. Any action the board wishes to take as a result of discussion in closed session will take place after the board reconvenes in open session. It is now 10:24. Thank you. session at 11:04. I have a couple of questions I want to go back and ask you, Board, if you would consider. The audit engagement letter and the instructional calendar. Anyone have any objection to place that on the consent agenda?
No, sir, that's fine.
Okay, thank you. Both of those will be placed on consent agenda. Okay. Mr. Morton, would you like to talk to us a little bit about requests for future agenda items? For
Yes, Mr. President, the administration requests the board to add an item for Thursday night's agenda to include approval of the purchase of a new antivirus software for district-wide use.
On this particular one, we have to, we need to vote on this one? Can't do a vote, can we? Okay, Board, y'all, okay?
Yeah, so we're gonna put that on the action agenda since we did not get to discuss it today, correct?
Thank you, that's right. Thank you. Are there any requests for future agenda items? Well, motion to adjourn,
I move we adjourn.
and a second.
Second.
A motion second, all in favor, sign of aye.
Aye.
All opposed, we adjourn. Thank you, ma'am, I'm blank.
You're good.
There's some food I think Holly has for you, y'all may wanna get your plate before you go.
I believe I will.
Have a pleasant day.
You too, sir.